Hello, today we will be discussing copyright law, specifically fair use in education covered under the Copyright Act. As teachers in the 21st century, it is highly likely that you have used different forms of digital media available to get your point across to students and have students submit work in your classrooms. It is unfortunate that most teachers are unsure if they are using media correctly or resources out there correctly or using it at all. Because of this, there are less and less people using all of the media that they could be using. In comes fair use, which permits a second user to copy part or all of a copyrighted work under certain circumstances, even when the copyright holder has not given permission. Let me be clear, it is not the simplest concept, but with a few short key factors and questions, you can understand it clearly. There are four main factors to be considered: the purpose and character of your use, including whether such use is commercial nature or is for non-profit educational purposes, the nature of the copyrighted work, the amount and substance of the portion taken in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole, the effect of the use upon the potential market, and the value of the copyrighted work. Since there is not one clear rule, fair use requires that people use reasoning and judgment and consider all four factors together to come up with a determination. Carrie Russell at the American Library Association put it best when she said, "Fair use cannot be reduced to a checklist. Fair use requires that people think. If you can think, you're more than halfway to understanding what can and cannot be used under fair use." It is important to understand that copying something is part of the creative process, and not copying isn't the answer to stopping copyright infringement. In fact, borrowed materials is highly effective in education. For instance, when students are learning to write, learners can imitate sentence structure of pre-existing syntactical forms instead of remaining lost and not knowing where to begin. This way, students have something to refer to and know what their work should look like in the end. Using pre-existing work also meets 21st century skills. Today, nearly all forms of contemporary creative expressions involve collaboration and teamwork, and most new ideas develop as a result of the conversation process and the sharing of ideas. Fair use has been put in place to support you and your actions in the classroom and is a critical component of the Copyright Act of 1976. Copying, borrowing, and sharing of ideas and designs are essential elements of the creative process. The key to understanding fair use is in comparing the copied work and the new work. The new work must not go beyond superseding the original creation, but add something new with further purpose, essentially altering the first with a new expression, meaning, or message. What makes a use fair isn't so much the context of the use, but the nature of the use. The important question to ask is, what is being done with the copyrighted material? The guide to understanding fair use is the idea of transformativeness. Transformativeness is repurposing of copywriting materials as part of the creative process. Two questions emerge when considering whether a specific use of copyrighted material is a fair use. Did the unlicensed use transform the material taken from the copyrighted work by using it for a different purpose other than that of the original? Or did it just repeat the same work for the same intent and value as the original? Was the material taken in appropriate in kind and amount, considering the nature of the copyrighted work and of the use? If the answer to these two are yes, it is highly likely you fall under fair use law. For example, my students have been assigned an audio project. They are asked to take a children's book, copyrighted work, and record the book along with sound effects, varied voice effects, and background music, all using GarageBand. The original creation of the book differs from the student's purpose of use, which was to simply fulfill the requirements of the class assignment. When assessing transformativeness of a creative work, it is important to determine if there is a negative effect on sales for the original producer. In the case of the audiobook, there was no economic harm. A key aspect to note: the more strongly transformative a new creative work is, the less issue of economic harm matters. The nature of the copyrighted work is another factor of fair use. Most times it is clear that the nature of the work has changed audiences. For example, students in my class were asked to take information they learned about the publishing world and create a magazine and a photo editor for a fictional event they created. The information about publishing, more scientific, would appeal to one specific audience, artistic, while the cover they created would appeal to another completely. Think of a teacher who finds a great resource on a popular online marketplace and purchases it, changes their name on it, and places it back on sale at another of the same marketplace. Not only has that teacher claimed this work as their own, but replaces the owner's right to profit from his or her own work, limiting legitimate sales for the product of the copyright owner. Educators need to use reasoning and judgment considering the specific situation. There are 5 principles that will explain how the doctrine of fair use applies to media literacy education. Under these principles, educators can make copies of newspaper articles, TV shows, and other copyrighted works and use them and keep them for educational use. They can create curriculum material and scholarship that contain embedded copyright materials and share, sell, and distribute curriculum materials that contain embedded copyright materials. Learners are also covered under these 5 principles. Learners can use copyrighted works in creating new materials and distribute their works digitally if they meet the transformativeness standard. For more information about this topic, specifically copyright and fair use, please refer to Renee Hobbs's book, Copyright Clarity: How Fair Use Supports Digital Learning. Thank you for listening today. Have a great day.